So those are my bona fides, and I state them lest you try and lynch me after I say the next thing I'm going to say. Okay. And just to protect myself from a potential lynching, I asked a number of my female colleagues from the office to join me here. Who's from the office here? Anybody? Okay, I can see a few hands. So my proposition is as follows, and my proposition actually is similar to something that Laurie said. My proposition is it possible for a woman, and in particular a woman who has a husband and or children, to have it all? And being a lawyer, I must define all. Okay? All, by my definition, is a happy husband and children, progression in the workplace that reflects the woman's real value and contributions, and a real hope of aspiring to the top job. My answer, and this is where the lynching comes in, my answer is no. Unless, and Laurie referred to this, unless you have strong support from your parents, unless you have strong support from your husbands, love them, that's why we're here. And unless you have strong support from the women who have gone before you. And finally, for my 2 minutes, unless you have strong support from us, men, it will not happen.
Thank you, Dan. Well done. And gentlemen, actually, feel free to go to the podium if you want to. Like we said, make this as real and as comfortable for you as you want. So, Tosin, you've got the stage for your 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and congratulations to WIMBIZ for an amazing job done over the last 17 years. I think I will start by saying that there's a lot of focus in recent times on the elevation of women into the most senior positions. And we saw a few years ago the central bank, I think, make this a rule, for example, for banks, and this has helped the dial move a lot, not just in banking, but in other financial services, including insurance, where I work. But I think the real focus has to be on moving women from the entry level, where they represent typically 50 to 60% of the intakes, to middle management. This is really the critical point where many drop off. If they form 50 to 60% at entry level and at middle management, they form only 10 to 20%, we already have a problem. And it then becomes very difficult to move from 20% at middle management to 50% at senior management, because then actually becomes a bit unfair to the men. So the real issue is, what do we have to do to move women from 50% at entry level to 50% at middle management level? And there are many reasons why people drop off. One, some people have said, well, do the women really want to do the job? Do they want to get to the top? I think, by and large, yes. The second issue, do they have support? We've heard about incredible support from the keynote speaker's husband this morning. Do they have support from home? First, do they have support from their father, the man who had the biggest opportunity perhaps to influence them, to influence their thoughts and their ambitions? Do they have support from the husband at home? And do they have support from the organization they work for? I think these three areas are very critical. The most critical of them, of course, is the support from the husband, I think. And there are not many men here, so obviously there are not many men, here who can hear this. But I think that men, spouses, have the biggest role to play. There are so many examples here, everywhere in the world, of women who have made it to the top, and I think you would always find that beside such women are great heroes, men who are superheroes. In banking, I've had bosses, a couple of them are here that I see, who have actually made it to the top. But every time I look at them and I see the success that they have had, I know it's the men behind them at home who have really helped this to happen. Men have a critical role to play also at the office, but I think the senior women who have made it to the top in the office perhaps have an even bigger role to play. Senior women in organizations have to help rewrite the rules. The rules were written by men a very long time ago. And a few women have managed to climb in spite of the very difficult rules written by men. But these rules must be rewritten. They are very simple structures that can help women, young women, navigate their ways from entry level to middle management. Some of them are being practiced today here and there. For example, establishing a crash in the office. It's a very simple matter. It sounds very simple, but the truth is we need it. When I was younger, and my wife and I got married, and my wife is here, and she had fallen prey
Jose,
to
you're
this.
moving beyond.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Okay.
Because we are coming back to that. And the real issue that I wanted you to talk about was your view in terms of the proportion, whether women have progressed in the last 10, 15 years. But that's okay. We'll just move right into the next question, right? And basically, we are saying that at corporate organizations, some corporate organizations do not really assist women in attaining leadership positions. Some are doing it, but majority are not, because they're not focusing on it, or because they don't even have women in senior positions to speak to that. So leading on from what we said, that we haven't made enough progress, in time, we haven't pushed the envelope. What I would like the gentleman to please now speak on is in improving the success rate of women. We don't want them falling off the cliff at middle management. We don't want them, when you need them to get over the bar, they're married, they're pregnant, they're coping with work-life balances. So in addition to having the spousal support, which we will come to, I would like us to address the situation. What can the corporate organizations do in addressing the current state of affairs? We must address that in the sense that if you want to retain these women, they're caregivers. There's certain things that they need to deal with. But some corporate organizations don't take that into consideration. Some of them have male bosses that are like, so? Some of them have female bosses who say, well, I was there. What is the excuse? Am I speaking to some people here? Thank you. So, in that spirit, the gentlemen are going to address us from their positions where they sit. And they are worried about the women falling off the cliff. They are worried that we don't have 50% at middle management level. What can you do? What can you speak to several other organizations out there? They want to take it away because we don't want to lose our women. I would like you to share your candid view, what you've done that is working, what you're doing that is not working. Let's be honest, because Q&A will come and we will be challenged. Can we start with Dan, please?
Okay. I think that, I think that the starting point is a basic notion of fairness. When you think about it, when the world was created with a 50-50 balance. So if your objective is fairness, anything outside of that 50-50 balance is unfair. Okay? But we sort of fell into it. We became a female-friendly institution, almost by accident. But it was an accident that actually illustrates why being a female-friendly institution is something that everybody should try and do. So we had a very good senior, actually she wasn't senior then. We had a very good lawyer who was going off on maternity leave and asked for an additional 3 months without pay. And I had a very good managing partner at the time who was away, she's over there. And we sort of, on a nudge and wink basis, just continued to pay her through the 6 months. Just a nudge and a wink. Because we wanted to keep her. And then she got pregnant again, as young women will. And again, on a nudge and a wink basis, we did the 6 months. And then another young lady asked for 1 month. And I said to Maima, who was managing partner, I said, we have to treat them the same way. And so we then established a policy of a 6-month paid maternity leave for senior women.
That is exciting.
Now, as I said to you, we are a 60-person law firm, 60 professional staff. We're not the most profitable, but at the heart of this is a notion of fairness, okay? So put up your hands here. Anybody whose firm or company has a 6-month paid maternity leave policy for senior women. So we have had this policy for
okay, let's keep it quiet. Thank you.
Let me put it to you like this. The child that was a product of this policy is in university.
Wow.
The first child. And so that's how long it dates back to. And the minimum period of maternity leave in the firm is 4 months for everybody. Senior, junior, it's 4 months. And then once you become a senior associate or a partner, it's 6. So start there. If you want to retain your senior women, start there.
Well done. Female-friendly institution. Did you hear me? Female-friendly institution. And we want to keep them. So there's a deliberate, conscious effort from the partners, from the men, from Udo Udoma Bello Osage. They value their women, and they've taken a deliberate step. Dan, as you see it as well as the chairman of UAC, how have you influenced the FMCG sector in this regard?
Can I plead the fifth?
He's pleading the fifth. Do we allow him?
Okay, UAC is a listed entity. It's established in 1879. Change comes a little more slowly to those sorts of institutions, but change will come.
And you believe him? I believe him. If he's done it with Udo Udoma, he will ensure that he influences the FMCGs. For those of you who are here, you've heard it, hold him to it. Okay, can we move over to Toiniko? What are you doing to retain your women in the oil and gas sector?
So
to be precise.
I can't compete with Dan with 6 months, so I won't even go there. However, but it's a good question, and I believe that the assault from our perspective is threefold, and it has to be done from 3 angles. I believe that the problem that we have looking forward, first of all, you have the psychological battle that you have to fight with women to let them know, first of all, that not only can you achieve it, yes, it's a world, man-dominated world, especially the energy industry, but it doesn't have to be so. I said that you have to fight and you have to take it and you have to break it. And so there's a mental and psychological battle that we have to do, and we start instilling that in all our staff from when they come, that we don't care who you are, male, female, and all of that. We're going to push, and you can push that boundary and you can make it. And we found that those who have taken on that psychological battle have gone extremely far. They've stayed, they've understood that they can do it and they can make it, and they've hit the top. So I'm happy with those ones. The next, which we found to be almost as difficult as psychological and mental battles, it's a cultural battle. It's a cultural battle that we have where, especially looking at where I said people fall off the cliff, where there's a guilt, I called it a cultural guilt, that we found that people believe that if they do not take care of their children, if they don't leave and they're made to feel that they're very bad mothers culturally, they cannot manage, their parents are going to think very badly of them, their friends and all of that. And so we have a cultural, which is a lot more delicate place to deal with, but it's something that must be dealt with. I don't know how you deal with it in your place, but we feel that there's a major cultural issue here that we must deal with when it comes to women in the workplace. And we're dealing with that. We find that extremely difficult, but it's something that we're working on. And then the last aspect of it is the physical, that which you must do, which people see, and they see that as an example that you're working through. And so when it comes to, there are three areas that we deal with the physical aspect. One is maternity. So we make sure that people are paid all through. Their salary does not come down, it doesn't go up. They are paid, whether they're on maternity or not. We give people basic a 3 months maternity.
How many months do you
Three,
give?
basically,
3 months.
basic. A 3-month maternity. But almost everyone that we know, what did you call it? You wink away a 4th month. Okay, because we find that, especially, let me explain why this is the case. When people are here in Nigeria and they give birth in Nigeria, 3 months is more than enough for them. But every single time that we find, and many of the people who work for us, because they can afford to go abroad, most of them go abroad. And when they go abroad, you then find out that it then stretches from 3 to 4 months or thereabouts. And so, more or less, policy says 3 months, but we also allow them to stay an extra month. Throughout the period, we realized that one of the things that when people are away, they're concerned about their bonuses, concerned about their performance, that they're not working at this point. So what's going to happen? Will they suffer the fact that they're away from at that period for bonuses? And so one of the things that we have made sure from day one is that their bonus does not suffer. The time that they're away, even though they've worked, most of them at this point, either a third of the year, or a quarter of the year, or sometimes even half of the year, they are not penalized for being pregnant, for going away. And it's a very important point for them, that they know that not only do they receive their salaries, but that they receive their bonus at the end of the year for something that was not their fault. They got pregnant. I like the fact that you have... No, but it's true. It's not their fault. But you cannot penalize them for that. And so that's something that we do. We've been having discussions. We allow children to come into the office on particular days so that they can. We found that again, I go back to the cultural guilt. Women, we found, and sometimes more women we found feel very, very guilty about working long hours, about not being at home, about getting home and their children are asleep, and coming out and their children are not away, their children are, they feel more than men. Men will just get up and go. But women feel very guilty about it. So when we realized that that was the case, we started allowing women, I believe it's either once a month or twice a month, to bring their children into the office on a day where they can just bond. Now, again, that falls into the psychological end of it, because what we saw is that the children began to understand a bit better about what their mothers do. And their mothers were proud to show their children that we don't just come to the office and play around, but we actually have important roles in the office. But more important, there's just a bonding, and it's just a beautiful day. So I enjoy it. We enjoy seeing my children are no longer children, but...
Very good, Tony. Excellent.
Okay.
Right. They have a father and Sunday.
They have a father and Sunday.
Father and Sunday to work. Cultural guilt. I remember when Bimbola and I heard him say that, we took a pause. And that cultural guilt is real. It is real. Because, especially for newly married, you're having your first baby, your pride and joy, nothing else is important. Even some of us can say, look, the job can. But if we're realistic, my comment to that is, we love our children. But at the same time, we must have a balance in the way we think. And again, we must be fair to the organization. That cultural guilt is cultural. And again, when we move on to the next question about spousal and all of that, you will see that the moment you've got enough well-rounded support, you won't feel as guilty.
That's true.
And especially if you want to have a career progression in the corporate sector, there must be a balance of thought. We need to be realistic. We need to be real. If you go to work and you balance it, there's a particular word I'm waiting for the men to say, to mention. It hasn't come yet. I'm hoping when Tosi, who is going to speak next, maybe he will touch on it, because I'm sure we will all love to hear that. Tosi, you have the mic to share with us.
Now I have to try and find the word. I see a lot of this depends on how people have also been brought up. And I think as mothers here, it's very important that we spend a lot of time with our male children.
Can you hear Tosi at the back?
In helping to change their culture, to change the way they think about equality or inequality. I think if we have more male children growing up understanding that the goals and the ambitions of their wives are as important as theirs, perhaps we will begin to see, some of the desired changes. Working with Ike many years ago, I remember I had to carry my son to the creche at GT Bank for many months because my wife was out there, doing other things, and changing jobs and settling down on a new job. I didn't think it was our responsibility. I thought it was our responsibility. But perhaps it was easy for me because I had a mom, who made it clear to me, and to all of us growing up that this is really, a responsibility of both parties. I don't know if I have said this word.
I'm sure. Can you hear me? No, I haven't heard the word yet, but I'm thinking, I hope you will pass that.
Give us a clue. If I fail the test,
I'll ask the audience.
It's 0 out of 4 on the men. But actually, I've said this before, and I think I have to emphasize it again. The issue about diversity generally is an issue of enlightenment, okay? And to be honest, if the men at the top, where things tend to be populated by men, don't understand, don't throw stones at them. Don't assume that the man at the top is enlightened. And the enlightenment is the first step to change. Now, we sit here and we espouse, as men, okay, a certain common understanding and belief in addressing the challenges of women. It comes out of the fact that all the men here, and I can tell you authoritatively, drink out of the same pool or pond of enlightenment. Okay? It came from our bosses who drank from that pool. It came from our mothers who drank from that pool, and so on. And the truth of the matter is that if you go back and look at the people that come to speak at these conferences who are men, it's the same group of us. Now, are things changing within the organizations led or inspired or founded by those men? Yes, but we are not representative of Nigeria. Okay? And the power of WIMBIZ is to take this beyond the usual suspects and change Nigeria. Okay? Enlightenment doesn't come easy. It requires honest, courageous conversations. And it requires patience and the readiness to, in a sense, when you find somebody who didn't drink out of that same pool, who doesn't speak the same language, you may have to speak their language. Okay?
Right.
And
So,
in my own organization, or organizations that I have had an influence on, I think that the most powerful source of change has been the establishment of what I call, or what I found, a women's network. And I came across women's networks not in Nigeria, but in international organizations. And I understood that one of the most effective was in Standard Chartered. And I called Bola Adeshola. I said, you're going to help me. I'm going to send the women of Access Bank to you because I want Access Bank to create a powerful women's network.
Okay,
a network.
You're almost getting there.
No. I've got to land here.
You've got to land, but we've got time, and there are two other
So give me one more minute.
No, make it 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So look, the point is this, okay? The women in Access Bank, like the women in Standard Chartered, like many of the women potentially here, and I hope with WIMBIZ, have become leaders. Women's networks, you develop leaders. And I'm not now talking about banking leaders or just leaders, women who can run countries and so on. When you have women like that within an organization, change takes place. True. And so my own point of advocacy is that any organization that truly wants to effect change for women within it and does not have a women's network where women are allowed to come together, enlighten themselves, take positions, and change that organization is not being fair to its women.
Good. Now, the word I was looking for is flexible working hours. No, but none of you talked about flexible working hours, and I know that is at the tip of your tongue. And that is what the women want to hear. After your delivery, you have things to do. You just need those hours to help get the work-life balance in order.
We're saving it for the last.
You're saving it for the last. Okay. Now, running very quickly into the next question, which I know we all want to hear from them. And that is, how important or to what extent do you think spousal support plays an important role in the progression of a woman's career? And the angle at which I want us to address this is for you to share from your personal perspectives. Women will grow, they will develop, they will keep the home in order. The family must be in order. When they finish the work at home, the second job starts. They're juggling. Can you tell us, how have you supported your wives in reaching their full potential? If you give us your examples, your modus operandi, your model, we may learn from it, won't we? So we would like you to please start, Toyin. Thank you.
Since I always have the good luck of beginning. All right, so my wife is a medical doctor, and I've known her since university, since I was 19, so from University of Lagos. Now, once she graduated, from the minute she finished, I always insisted that it was extremely important that she practiced, that she worked, and she went into work. Because I always felt that if we were both not occupied, fully occupied, I think it brings more problems in the home. Do you agree? But it also means that from the male perspective, that you have to be there to do certain things. So do you have to take the children to school? You will have to do that or provide for that. So I made sure that she worked all the time.
Good.
And has continued to do so until she decided that it's time to retire and spend my money.
She's allowed to.
She's allowed to.
As long as the support
100%.
is there.
And I'm supporting that as well.
I go, Jay.
Thank you, Deola. First of all, I think you use the term spouse, so you're talking about the marital contract.
Wives. Your wives.
No, I'm fine with spouse. And we're talking about the marital contract.
Yes.
I think it's important for us to start with the fact that it's not a transaction-based contract, it's a relationship contract, okay? And therefore, it's a journey, it's going to be dynamic, and it's not really going to be a function of necessarily points in time. You are going to look at the totality of that journey and how you finish that journey. So it's important, women, that you don't just think about today and now, you also have to think about the future, and hopefully, ending that contract on a high note. And I see some women who are very, 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 very much advertisements of that. Now, my view on life, first of all, man or woman, is that there are really no conventional rules about how you define success. I think the uniform issue is the issue of happiness. And there was a lady a Chinese woman who in a game show was asked so this is this dating show, so a man in the audience, asks, will you marry me? And she says something like, what car do you drive? And he says he rides a bicycle. And so this Chinese woman says, I would rather cry at the back of a BMW than smile at the back of a bicycle. And this threw all types of issues up in the world. And then somebody made a comment that that some people actually can buy many BMWs but are happy riding bicycles. So I'm basically saying that don't necessarily track one woman's success, and say that is your path to success. You must be happy in what you do. Don't let another person define you.
Very true.
Walk your own path. Now, that being said, the point is, okay, I needed to understand, what makes this woman happy? Where is she going? And how do I support that process? And it's been dynamic because as she has grown, her needs and her priorities have also evolved. Early on in her career, when she wanted to be in banking, I remember taking 6 weeks paternity off GTB. I did. And 6 weeks paternity leave.
He deserves a round of applause.
And I was in the States with her whilst we had our first baby. And there were many reasons why I had to do that. And it was a risk. And I was fortunate that I had an understanding organization. There are many men who, if they had risked that, actually maybe the story would not be the story that a lot of you ascribe to me, in banking. Beyond that, she says she wants to do an MBA. I am in GTB at the time, and she's going for a Chevening scholarship. She wins the scholarship, but she gets admission at Cambridge University. And the Chevening organization say, we've never done, there are certain universities, this is too much, and so on. And I said, well, I told her, look, it's Cambridge or nothing.
Wow.
And it was Cambridge, but Chevening supported, Laura. So my message there is this. Find out what is important to that woman and make sure you support it. Now, hold on. As she's grown older, she has had this, she's not interested in making money. She's interested in affecting lives. Development is something that's very key to her. You may not know her, but you'll be surprised about how involved and engaged she is on the northeast of Nigeria issues. And she believes that to go further in these issues, she has to build her intellect. So, she wants to do another master's. She does another master's. She wants to do a PhD. She does a PhD. And if that means that I am taking the kids on school runs, by the way, that means I have to travel to England almost every week. Some of you may not know that. Okay, I do it. Now, I don't do it, by the way, simply because I feel that as a man, I have this medal. I do it because the partnership, the union is all about happiness. Yes. If I make her happy, I am happy. If our kids are happy, I am happy.
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head, really. Bottom line here is that it's a partnership. It's a journey to be, to ride together, and each other would benefit the whole, right? So, I will move over.
I need to tell you this joke. You see, there's something on there's this armband. And when I came in, I loved this armband. And they said, it's for mothers who are putting their kids into the creche. Okay, so they can identify their kids when here, you have a creche here. Am I correct?
we do.
Okay. So I grabbed one of these, and then they said, where's my child? And I said, look, if I produce a child, Ofowe is going to be here from England this evening.
That's a good one. Tosi, can you tell us your journey, if you can, in 30 seconds? You know why? I am being watched. My timekeeper is telling me my time is up. Now, I have to ask the permission of the chairperson of the conference because I cannot exceed the time allotted. But I know this is important to you. Let's wrap it up very quickly because you have questions and answers, right? So, Tosi, 45 seconds. And I know you can do it.
Thank you very much. My wife and I have had an amazing journey together over the last 23 years. I will skip the earlier part and talk about the business that she does today, which she started in my study about a decade and a half ago. And I believed in what she wanted to do. I helped her raise capital. We started the business in my study. The first few, it's a cleaning business, by the way, and I think she cleans for many people, in here, many of your offices.
I think it's squeaky clean, right?
Yes, it is.
Squeaky clean.
And the first few places she went to clean for, I went with her, and we scrubbed together, and mopped together, and together we started to grow the business. I was the chair of her advisory board, which meant that MPRs, monthly performance review sessions, were conducted in our home. And we did this for about a decade until the fights became too much. And I had to withdraw in defeat. But by that time, the business was already grown. She employs over 1,000 people today.
Excellent, thank you. When we went to see her, when Bimbo and I went to see him, right, and he told us a story, I thought, if you don't say that story, I'm going to, get it out of you. The first 4 businesses, the first 4 jobs you said, he went with her, mopping the floor, scrubbing the floor to ensure they achieve perfection. And today, Squeaky Clean is a brand name in cleaning business. I'm sure one way or the other, offices or homes have used Squeaky Clean. Dan, I know your wife, and I know that you know that I know. So,
Let me, I was asking Tonye who bullied him into coming for this. Let me tell you a story about this lady here. Every time when I see her and think of her, I remember the story my wife told me of how she met her. She met her along Oyinkon Abayomi, where her car broke down. Her car broke down. My name is not Neil. And for those of you who are here in the morning, you will understand that's an insider's joke. Neil is the name of Laurie's husband, who sounds like a wonderful, accommodating human being. My name is not Neil, and when I first got married, I couldn't do all those wonderful things. In some respects, I'm playing catch-up today in the office. And I think my wife is an example of someone who did not have it all as defined by me. So if you think of it in terms of, and that's because, quite frankly, for a variety of reasons, one of which was that I was also equally focused on my own career, I couldn't provide the degree of spousal support that a professional needs in order to achieve the top as quickly as she would have. So I reckon that, my wife is a senior advocate of Nigeria.
SAN.
I reckon she got there I reckon because of the compromises that all of this requires women to make, unhappily, I reckon she got there 10 to 12 years after she should have. But it's our responsibility as a panel, as the men on this panel, to make sure that all you young women out there in this hall don't have to make the same sort of compromises.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, one very last question. I had another question, but I'm going to skip it for time. I'm skipping it because Laura already touched on it. That's sexual harassment. But again, I think it's also important to raise it here in Nigeria. If you are confronted in your organizations and you get a report, this is simply because I, for example, have had 3 mentees quit their jobs because they were violently and sexually harassed. And it is something we don't like to talk about. We're embarrassed about it. We're bullied. It's a big elephant in the room. In 15 seconds, if you can, just for the benefit, because, we need to also get disciplined, and I know that we are all very, involved in these conversations which we are having. If you are confronted with a sexual harassment issue in your offices, just 1, 2, 3 points. I know I can predict what you're going to say, just for the benefit of the audience, to give them the comfort, the courage of knowing what to do. What will you do? Ike.
Okay, thank you.
Ike. 15 seconds.
Okay. It happens within the organization. In the organizations that I run, there are clear rules about this. And really, the leadership from the top dictates how the organization deals with these issues going forward. If it happens in any organization I've led, if I take Access Bank, and there are women from Access Bank here, there are 2 things that we do. One, obviously, we have to protect the woman, okay? Because even though we may follow through with our normal disciplinary actions, in life, we don't assume a common understanding by all stakeholders, and there may be, backlashes and so on. So we have to insulate her from that. But one thing is clear, whether the harassment is coming from somebody who works within the institution or coming from somebody who works outside the institution, I deal with it personally. And there are many examples of this. Now, it's not all organizations that deal with things like this. By the way, you have to just go to the US or you go to the House of Commons and you see that it's a very problematic thing all over the world.
Yeah.
But I think it's a matter of the leadership and tone that comes from the top.
Well said. Tony.
I've spoken at sexual harassment or sexual conferences before. I have a very personal involvement in this because as a child growing up, I was actually sexually abused. So it's very personal for me. If that comes up, they're gone. I feel too much empathy in it because I am actually what you would call a victim. So I think that's enough said. It's enough.
Okay. I was soaking in what you just said because you didn't share that with us.
No, it's okay.
It's okay. Tosin?
For us, we have 0 tolerance. If we even hear the rumors, we don't even need to hear the lady filing. If we hear the rumors, we will deal with it. But I try to deal with it on a proactive basis. I discuss these with the senior people, with the men from time to time, and let them know what the repercussions will be so as to prevent it from happening at all. but I will act even based on rumor.
Good. Proactive. Proactivity works. Dan?
This is just one of those ones where, look, I'm a lawyer, so therefore you would have to go through a process where you established that this actually happened. But honestly, subject to that, whoever it is, at whatever level, he or she is gone.
Good. I think the lesson to take out of this is if you're a victim or victim to be or whether it is, just speak up. And I want to challenge the HR department of most organizations. I think you need to do a little bit more besides what you do regularly, because this is real, it's happening. And for me, what I always suggest is, especially at the entry level, as they journey, 3 months, 6 months, just go around them. Are you okay? Is everything working? I think it will help, because we don't want to lose good women from our organizations due to sexual harassment. It's a global thing. In Africa, it shouldn't be. It's happening, but we can kill it. Are we good for Q&A now? You've got 2 more minutes. Sorry? 2 more questions. Okay, right. The last Q&A now. Okay, for Q&A, you know how it goes. Brief, precise, but state your name. Okay, and you can address your question to any member of the panel. Do we have somebody? Oh, Mrs. Adeshola. Go on.
Thank you. My name is Bola Adeshola. I work with Standard Chartered Bank. Mine is actually a quick comment. A lot of the discussions today have been around married women, children, and so on. And I know that in this room, there are very many single women who also have major challenges, and they don't have spouses and so on to support them. So my comment is that organizations, and just as I said, when they set up women's networks, it's not just about women and children, with their children and their husbands, but also for single women and the societal stigma that they're focused on ambition, and that's probably why they're not married. So support structures for single women. Support structures that would also include even suggesting adoption. And I want to share for about 30 seconds what we in Standard Chartered do to ensure that we're a family-friendly bank. We have 5 months paid maternity leave plus 1 month unpaid. We have adoption leave for 2 months, so encouraging adoption leave for 2 months, because it's important that we don't just focus on birth mothers, but on mothers who also, for whatever reason, have children through other means. We have paternity leave so that our men can also support their wives at home. We have flexible working hours where you can work, choose your hours, work from the nearest branch. I don't work on Thursdays from the office, I work from home, and anybody is entitled to choose their working hours so that you have flexible.
Well, thank you very much. Are you done?
So that our workplace practices support whether you're single, you're married, you have children, you're divorced, or whatever. And I think it's important that we also mention that. Thank you.
Very well said, Bola. But I think the reality, what we must understand is Bola works for an international bank. So we can hail her, we can, it's the practice that she has to also comply with locally, globally. No? Okay. For the benefit of the corporate organizations who are here, you heard all what Bola said. We must set up structures for single mothers, for adopted parents, parents who are adopting, and for the classes of women who are generally not married. So it's a conversation that you can take back to your offices, and then we'll see how it will fly. But definitely it's a valid point. Thank you. Who is next? You know what we should do? Can we take about 2 questions together to make it faster? And then you just tell us who you want to answer the question. So we'll take, Professor Ogbi, Chief Olokade, I will not keep you standing 1 second longer. Please ask the question, sir.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. My question is harassment. You've limited it to your own staffs. What of your clients?
What of my clients? Okay. Yes.
Hello, my name is Zina Arinze.
Can you, yes, your name is?
Hello, my name is Zina Arinze. I've flown in last night just for this event. And first and foremost, I need to thank all the panelists. Thank you so much for all your comments. Dan, particularly, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and being so honest. And my question is with regards to, and Bola touched on it, divorced women. You made a comment, can we have it all? And there are lots of people in this place right now who want to be able to have it all, but they're suffering from divorce or abuse, and they are professional women. The reason why I'm asking this question is because this is what I do as my life passion. I have a book here. If you want, you can come and see me later on, called Reinvent You, How to Move from We to Me After Divorce. If you are a professional woman or a woman of faith, you can move forward and you can be successful and you can run your own businesses and mentor other people. And something you said as well, Mrs. Moderator, you talked about supporting women, bringing up each other. I like the fact that you helped that woman 30 years ago, and it's really important that for those of you that are here today that are in a position of leadership, please, 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 let this not just be lip service. Help as many women as possible around the world to move up. That is what I do, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So that's a comment, right? Yes, okay.
I can give this one free to whoever
That's
needs
okay.
it.
That's okay, thank you. Ngobe?
We'll just keep it, please, very short and sweet. We'll take the 2 questions here, and then we'll take the comment from the gentleman, and that's it, please.
That's it for Q&A?
That's it for Q&A, yes.
Right.
We have to wrap
okay.
up.
So
I'm not sure this is working. Okay. My name is Ihoma Onyaruga. I work for Chevron Nigeria Limited. I actually head the HR and medical department. So I just want to make comments on some of the things they said. 2 comments. One is on the power of women in bringing up the children. You can hear it from the men talking. We have the power to bring up these children, these men, to make them appreciate what women feel, respect women in the workplace when they go up to be leaders in organizations. That is one. The other one is in the organization itself. We have talked about maternity leave. Do we differentiate, do we discriminate against women when we are hiring them? I have heard of women when they are pregnant and they are being tested for pre-employment and they're found to be pregnant, they are dropped. So, first of all, hiring when a woman is pregnant. When a woman is being assessed after maternity leave, we just finished assessment in my company. A lady that went out on maternity leave and came back after about 5 months or 4 months, 4 plus, came back. We did not mention the fact that she was away for 4 or 5 months. We mentioned what she did when she was in the office. Mind you, we don't believe that pregnancy is a disease, and we don't have to make it one. Then assessment is one. Promotions. Do you promote a woman in the year she went on vacation? The third one for organizations is sexual harassment. It's not just about what the topmost leader feels. It's about the institutionalizing it. What policies are in place that are created awareness around to make sure that it does not happen, so that people are free to say it when it happens.
Thank you very much.
So we have that enabling environment.
Thank you.
My name is Tolu Oni. I work with L Plus Limited. I have 2 questions. The first is on empowerment. So we have WIMBIZ and Mr. Aigoji. I'm sorry I can't pronounce your surname. You had mentioned that all men seated on this panel have taken from the same pot, maybe the same pot of wisdom. There are a lot out there who do not have your mentalities. The women have this platform. Some of us have been able to up our game what are you doing to help other men? I'm saying this because my husband is a fantastic man. He has read by himself to treat women right. But it's not all the time he's able to do it. Because he grew up with an Ekiti father who thinks he's...
Oh my God.
No, I'm just
Thank
giving
you.
that as an example. But the question is, what are you doing for other men to change their mentalities? Second question.
Thank you. We'll take that. That's it.
Please, second, please.
No, we have to be disciplined. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, thank
Mr.
you.
Ladner.
Hello. Thanks for the opportunity. My name is Tunji Ladner, and my question is directed to Dan specifically. Earlier on, he spoke about the entrenched rules of the game, as you said. And I was wondering, is there a way in which we begin, even as we talk about the issues of women in business and in other spheres of public and private lives, begin to deal with the issues of how do we rewrite the entrenched rules of the Nigerian patriarchy on a sustained manner? Essentially what I'm saying is that it's ironic we have all of these wonderful women here, this gathering talking about women, right? And of course we have a smattering of men here also. But the key thing is really, is to make this lasting, we have to actually address the challenges of the men. And how do you begin, from whichever point of contact, begin to rewrite the rules of the entrenched interest of the patriarchy in Nigeria? The one thing that comes to mind, and I'm throwing the gauntlet now, is that we should actually, as men, have something on the scale and sophistication of WIMBIZ. I think there's space now and time, due to the success of WIMBIZ, for a men's biz or a man's biz or something. and I'm interested in this, you know, and I'm willing to work with any man or woman, you know, to get this started. If you don't get the men, very little is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ladner. Is that the last one? Oh, okay.
Good
Mary.
Morning. Good morning. My name is Mary Akpobome. My question really is to the men in the house. I guess it's been touched on. I look in the house and there are 1,000 plus 2,000 women in Lagos. This is Lagos. Question, if this conference were held in Anambra, what would the room look like? If it were held in Kano, what would the room look like? If it were held in my home in Uyo, what would the room look like? The problem is not the women turning up. Trust me, all women want to be successful. They want to do extremely well. They want to be able to have as much balance as possible. But these are places where the cultural issues, and in this case, the men issues, will not allow them. So my question is to would it be a question or a comment or something for Tonye, Ike, Dan, Tosin to take away as men? Because if we as WIMBIZ go to Kano to do this, they'll probably stone us. But it's important that the men can go out there and let our counterparts in those places know that we have been successful men because of the quality of women that are behind us.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. They will address it.
Thank you.
They will address it. I will answer very quickly to Chief Alakpade's question when he asked me whether I have been sexually harassed. Okay, right. I think the client of the bank harassing the staff. Well, I know that. Why I said that is because I work for Deutsche Bank, I have clients, and I can answer the question. And I actually do have a particular incident about 15 years ago, and I'll just share very quickly. I went marketing to a bank. The bank is no longer, alive. And it was actually, a senior member of management. And when he said to me that, Mrs. Aziz, you've come to see the MD, and I know you're after an account, blah, blah, blah. I said yes. He said, but you know what, to get that account, I think, why don't we go for dinner? I said, dinner? If I have to go for dinner, I need to take permission from my bank. It was the next thing I could say, because I knew where he was going to. So invariably, I mean, I'm not a spring chicken by any way, form, or manner. And I can smell it miles apart. So what I always say is that for the young women in the room, before you start any work, your father, your mother, your mentors, you must talk about this. You must anticipate it. And it comes in various forms, shape, or manner. Each organization must define what is sexual harassment for them. A wink in Deutsche Bank is sexual harassment. Be careful. So, who wants to answer the question? Ngove, you need? Okay, you want to come?
Thanks, Diola. I want to answer a number of questions with my own submission. At the end of the day, a lot of the things that I've heard, we've discussed, even in my discussion with Bimbo and Diola, come to this issue of coping, how to cope, how to address these challenges as they come, whether you're a man or you're a woman. And we had a discussion, and I said, look, why doesn't WIMBIZ invest in an app that can change, actually, the game as far as Nigerian women are concerned? This is an app that would be proactive and could also be reactive. An app that tells me, as a young woman working somewhere, how do I spot sexual harassment? How do I handle it? Maybe an app that links to a site that says, you have been harassed, press this or send a text to this number. And I know that if this is done well, it can be very powerful. So you know what I'm going to do? I will fund that app. It's a WIMBIZ app.
Wow.
Okay? But I think that as great apps go, we need to go through the innovative process by which apps, let's do a competition, hackathon, whatever it is. And I mean, you have many technology women in this room and in WIMBIZ. Yeah. Let's create a world-class app that will change the game as far as women knowledge and enlightenment are concerned.
Thank you very much, Ike. Very noble, very kind of you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Can I? All right. So, Bola, thanks. I think we need to take, one of the things that we need to take the conversation outside of this room regarding how international companies operate and how companies owned and operated by Nigerians in Nigeria operate. And it will address some of the issues that we are finding with flexi hours and a couple of other things. But it's a conversation that will take too long to discuss here. But we need to address it, and we need to address it seriously. And WIMBIZ should address it. I have my theory, so please come and sit with me and let's talk about it. But it's something that needs to be done. But having said that, we talked about harassment. Now, I'm in an industry also where we brought in a lot of women as well. We do a lot of business development. We saw that it's a male-dominated industry, and because of the pipeline in schools, you don't have a lot of women coming in, either in engineering and a lot of other things. But we encouraged them and we brought them in. But we also send them, we are a relationship business. And so we send people out all the time, and they're exposed to all sorts of things. And so one of the things that we inculcate deeply in our staff, anybody on the outside, talking about clients, anyone on the outside that tries you, if they want to talk, first of all, if we hear that you have entered into a relationship with a client, you're gone first. Okay? So let's know it. So we set that down at the beginning. Don't sleep with anybody because you're looking for Sarah business. You and the person, you are gone. Okay? So that's extremely important, first of all. Then secondly, coming back, if anybody harasses you, touches you, puts you in an uncompromising situation, winks at you, please let us know. Immediately, no, seriously. I'm serious about this because it's an issue that must be dealt with. We don't want to put our people, we have a lot of young people, we have a lot of young women, we have a lot of young men. And please, sexual harassment is not only on women, okay? And we have a lot of very handsome men and beautiful women, seriously. And we put them out every single day. And so we say to them, we don't want to hear it. I don't want a man going to sleep with a woman because they want a job, or vice versa. But if you are harassed for any reason, please let us know so that we can deal with it. Now, it's easier for me, as a man at the top, to go and deal with a client who I know is trying to harass my staff. I can deal with it, but they cannot. That's important. One last thing. Now, on the psychology, I talked about psychology of women. We find out that psychology of staff generally. And so one of the things that we know is that people get depressed, and Law talked about it, postnatal depression. We know that there's a lot of mental health that needs to be addressed. And so we thought about it and said in HR that, you know what, we need to get people who will come and talk to us and deal with these issues. And we tried a poll in the company, and nobody wants to talk to who they think is a shrink. Now, it's a cultural issue. So we find that a lot of people are carrying some very deep problems, but they have no one to talk to. We need to institute that aspect of it, of mental health within the office, to deal with issues of harassment, issues of promotion, issues of postnatal depression, and all sorts of things. So we are working on it in Sahara as part of something that we can do, but we have to break the cultural barrier that it's okay to talk about your problems.
Right. Does anybody want to talk about Mr. Ladner's comments? Mr. Ladner's question? It was to Dan.
Yeah, I think the fact that men have been given the opportunity to sit on this panel is part of the process of engagement, Tunji, that is going to be required. It's really all about engagement. Finding believers, finding advocates in this cause of fairness. Because it's really, for me, it's really just, it's not feminism, it's nothing. It's just, at its heart, for me, it's fairness, okay? And there's a related initiative that WIMBIZ have, which is WIMBOARD, trying to get more women on boards. And I was invited to a WIMBOARD function. I am a firm believer and advocate in WIMBOARD's causes, and any opportunity I have, I will try and get more women on board. So I think it's really that sort of advocacy, finding believers, and you have 4 believers here.
WIMBIZ.
WIMBIZ.
Yes.
I think that the power ultimately lies with the women. Responding to Mary's question, of course the men here would be happy, to go along with this organization, to far places in Nigeria, to help, talk about this. But ultimately, women have greater influences on their sons. The journey must start early. You must really start this cultural change very early. You must teach your children, your sons, about equality. You must teach them about sexual harassment. You must teach them about discipline. The men have to be role models, it is true, but I think a lot of power lies with the women. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This session is now closed, and I really just want to ask you all to give a rounding sound of applause to these amazing men. They love us. They've been very, very kind to us. They've been open. They've sent their life histories to us. And honestly, the conversation hasn't stopped. It's going to continue in our various forums, women networks, and all of that. Thank you all so much for your participation. We wish we could go on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Aziz. Right now, we're going on a short tea break, a very short tea break. We're going to request, the tea break is going to be very short because we are out of time. But we're going to also have photo sessions at the media wall.